now. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Perfect. Well, yep, as I said, thank you everyone for coming today. Very excited to speak with you all. My name, as was introduced, is Matt Griffin. I'm serving as the Program Coordinator, Sustainability Education and Learning at The Ohio State University. I work for Ohio State Sustainability Institute, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about. I've only been working at the university for a year, but I got my undergrad in sustainability from Ohio State, so I was very excited to return to the university in a professional role. I'm currently studying in the Higher Education and Student Affairs Master's program at the university, so excited to be learning more about theories about student college development and organizational theory and things like that, and being able to apply it to my work. And a lot of that is actually helping inform as we progress on this project. I also help lead a learning community for students called the Sustained Learning Community. And so that's an experiential learning group for students who are passionate about sustainability. And there's no major requirements, so we have a wide range of majors who are represented in that. And so part of my job is overseeing that community, and then part of my job is working on living lab projects and helping enhance and empower those opportunities at our university. Also, love trees, love my dog. So to talk a little bit about the Sustainability Institute. So the Sustainability Institute was also formed in 2019. It was formed out of two different units at the university. I'm just sharing this as a bit of some background information for you all. We'll move through it quickly. But it was combined from two existing units at the university, the Sustainable and Resilient Economy Discovery Themes, which was a very research-focused unit, and the Campus Office of Energy and Environment, which was a very operations-focused unit. And so the Sustainability Institute was formed out of these two separate units to try to represent the broad capacities of the university in the different areas we work in and move us towards sustainability in all of those areas. So very excited to be part of this team. A bit about our vision there, mostly about talking about leveraging our expertise and our resources to produce new knowledge and innovations, but also really be catalyzing a culture of sustainability, both on campus and beyond. So we're very excited about the role we have as a land-grant university and making sure we're fulfilling that role from a sustainability lens. So this is just an example. The Sustainability Institute, we do not work alone at the university. I think that's one of our strengths. We make sure that we're constantly collaborating with other units, both internal and external. And so we talk to academic units, operational units, we're talking with other members of the campus community, and then we're also frequently engaging with external partners, always looking for opportunities to create new sustainability improvements, but also seeing, what can we learn from one academic unit that we can apply to a different academic unit about, new sustainability curriculum? What can we learn from an operational unit that could inform what an external partner is trying to do? So we're always looking to make those connections. Here's a bit about the goals of the Sustainability Institute. I won't go into these too much, but basically, again, kind of just looking at all the functions of the university and making sure that we are fulfilling our role as a land-grant university. In the Sustainability Institute, we take that role very seriously and looking not just in how we can serve our campus, but also the communities that we're a part of. So in addition to the Sustainability Institute's goals, the university itself also set sustainability goals. And so they go across four major areas: teaching and learning, research and innovation, outreach and engagement, and resource stewardship. I'm going to talk about these quickly because a lot of them align with our work in Living Lab and what we're trying to do with Living Lab work. So for the teaching and learning category, that's about the curriculum we're providing for students, making sure we're educating the next generation of sustainability leaders. And a big part of that is, are we creating meaningful opportunities for them that engage our campus resources and campus expertise? So we recognize that Living Lab and campus's lab opportunities are an amazing way to give students an opportunity to engage with cutting edge information, cutting edge technologies, and also thought leaders in these different areas. And so we're always looking, how can we make those connections to make sure our students have that opportunity to engage with really meaningful, impactful sustainability work and projects. Research and innovation, the university is a research university, and so we're always thinking of how can we push the envelope, how can we move towards generating new sustainability innovations, but also how do we get those innovations into where they can make an impact. So, knowledge for knowledge's sake is great, but it's not going to change the world. And so we're always trying to figure out how do we take our knowledge and move it towards where and put it in the hands of those who need it. Are there metrics connected to these goals? Sam, yeah, great question. We just wrapped up our scorecard for the 2019 fiscal year. And so I'd be happy to share that. we track a wide number of metrics that fall into those. I don't want to go into those today just because it gets kind of messy as we talk about those in more detail. But Sam, I'd be happy to follow up with more information. But yes, each of these areas has goals assigned to them. And then you also see in the research stewardship goals, there's a lot of metrics that we're tracking in there. But yeah, we have different metrics about like engagements, number of research opportunities, people engaged in research, publishing, new sustainability courses. We're tracking a lot of metrics in a lot of areas there. Great question. Thank you. Outreach and engagement. So this is kind of us catalyzing that culture of sustainability. So looking towards how do we engage our partners? How do we create generations of people who care about sustainability from a wide variety of lenses, both on campus and beyond. And so our resource stewardship goals, we have a number of goals that kind of look at all the ways we're utilizing resources and consuming resources on our university. And we set measurable goals in each of these areas to try to make improvements. I won't go into each of these goals, but I'm happy to follow up with more information if anyone's interested. But I just wanted to focus on one for today's conversation, and that's the ecosystem services goal. And so our goal is to increase campus ecosystem services by 60%. We developed an ecosystem services index that tries to quantify the different ecosystem services that our campus is producing. So, we're not just looking at things like tree cover, we're also thinking about biodiversity, stormwater retention, things like that. And we're looking to make improvements overall 60% at our university. And so we're working in a lot of exciting ways in that regard, but one of the ways we measure an ecosystem service that our campus is providing is by the number of living lab opportunities that we have. And so these living lab is clearly something we're very passionate about at Ohio State, and we're very excited about. And so we're always thinking, as we have new development projects or as we're thinking about how we utilize our land, we're always keeping an eye out is there an opportunity to utilize this space for a living lab experience, as a campus's lab experience? And how can we make sure that we're preserving those opportunities there for students and faculty and staff to engage with our campus to create new sustainability knowledge? So happy to talk more about any of these, but I just wanted to quickly do an overview of that so that we can kind of talk more about this sustainability in action platform, this living lab platform that we've started developing at the university.
Matt, before you go on, there's two questions in the chat.
Yeah.
Are you able to share the ESI framework you are using? I'm guessing that's Ecosystem Services Index. And then there's a question from Emily, do you have permanent living lab staff at OSU or staff with partial appointments?
Yeah, absolutely. So great questions. So as far as the ESI framework, yeah, we can absolutely share that out. We're very excited about it, and we're hoping to be kind of publicizing it widely here in the next coming years. I'm happy to follow up with it afterwards. Definitely for today's goals, I'll just say that we've been tracking the number of living lab opportunities that we're offering, and we're on schedule with what we were planning on doing to hit our 60% increase. So we're very excited that we're still on track to meet our goals, but obviously we're always working to exceed those goals. But yes, I'd be happy I can share out a link to our framework if that can be shared out to the group. And then I'd be happy to continue any conversations. But yep, absolutely able to share that out. As far as permanent living lab staff, that would be me. Yeah, I have a little over a 50% appointment to be working on campus's lab and living lab work. The Sustainability Institute, like I've said, we've had a lot of goals in this area. So a lot of our staff kind of work in it, but I'm really the only one with kind of a stated appointment that focuses on this. We have academic units that also kind of have a focus on specific opportunities. So they're not stated as like a living lab employee, but they might be working with a lab that, does a lot of living lab work. And so we have our Center of Automotive Research. They do a lot of really cool living lab projects, and they have dedicated staff that work with that program. So they're not named as living lab staff, but a lot of what they do is living lab work, if that makes sense. But yes, if you ever have a question about campus's lab opportunities at our university or interested in hearing more about what's going on, I'm definitely the person to reach out to, and I'll probably connect you with others, but you can always reach out to me as a starting point. Great questions. What's happening sometimes? Yes, we do the same, Emily. So we're always keeping an eye out on what you all are cooking up and thinking, maybe is this something that we can try to put an OSU spin on? So yes, happy to have some friendly competition going back and forth there. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. But yeah, and Liska, I'm excited to hear that you all are working on something similar. That's definitely happy to talk more about it. I myself do not work with much with the Ecosystem Services Index beyond the living lab pieces. Another member of our team, Mike Shelton, he's our associate director of the Sustainability Institute. He was really the leading effort, along with people from our facilities operations and development staff office. They were really instrumental in developing this. And so I'd be happy to, reach out to him and get some information and then possibly make it connect if that would be useful. But we're very excited about this way of measuring ecosystem services. Real quickly, I'll go into this. The ecosystem services goal is actually, it's been our sustainability goal for the university that's evolved the most over time. And so when that goal was first stated, it was a tree cover goal. And so we were looking to increase our tree canopy on campus. But after that goal was made, through some quick analysis of our campus, we realized that due to the increasing density and the number of students we're trying to bring to our university, and also the number of new buildings we're trying to bring online for teaching and education and things like that and research, there's no way to hit that goal from a tree canopy perspective. And also, tree canopy wasn't really the spirit of what we were trying to do with that goal. It was more about thinking holistically about our campus and all the ways we can value the land that and the benefits that land provides. And so that goal was reevaluated. It was changed a couple more times. And then finally, we've landed on this Ecosystem Services Index goal. And so we're very excited about that kind of journey that led us here and what we learned along the way. So definitely happy to share that with others. Yes, Sam. Yeah, always, always good to see there's some friendly competition and making sure we're all pushing each other to be our best. But yeah, let me know if anyone has other questions, please drop them in the chat. Like I said, it's always, I think the most benefit that we can get out of this is through dialogue and discussion, although I'm happy to share more about anything that's presented in our slides here. But going back, is there anything else I missed, Rochelle or Emily? Any other questions? Okay, perfect, thank you. So the platform itself. So kind of thinking about all these things we're trying to achieve with our campus and with our sustainability goals and thinking how we want Living Lab to be a piece of that. We decided that we want to develop a virtual platform that can help us, enhance and empower these Living Lab opportunities. And so we came up with the name Sustainability in Action. Not the world's most creative name, but we ran a bunch of more creative names and kind of different names by students. And they're like, just call it Sustainability in Action, call it what it is. And so that's what we stuck with. And so we're excited about that name. But it's really going to be a comprehensive virtual platform for looking at Living Lab opportunities at our university. And you can see the goal, it's been on screen for a while, so we'll go ahead and progress past that. We developed a very long definition of what we're trying to achieve here and what we kind of meant by sustainability in action, because we wanted to talk, Living Lab is definitely a big piece of it, but there's also some other pieces we want to track. So things like partnerships with external organizations. So even though a lot of our partnerships are great learning opportunities, we didn't really qualify them as Living Lab, because when we said Living Lab, we were thinking about our campus itself. And so we kind of extended the definition of what we mean by sustainability in action to include a lot of these experiential sustainability learning opportunities. And then we also wanted to include research in this. So things like Living Lab research alongside Living Lab projects. So, even if there's not, when we think of projects, we mostly talk about things that students are involved with, undergraduate or graduate students. And so there's a lot of focus on learning as the outcome. But when we talked about research, it was kind of the focus was on producing new knowledge rather than sharing existing knowledge. And so we differentiated the categories in that way. Projects was about existing knowledge and exposing people to that. Research was about the generation of new knowledge. And so we had a lot we were trying to capture within this phrase. And so we built this long definition that I'm happy to share out afterwards. But basically the long and short of it is we want to figure out what experiential sustainability learning opportunities are happening at our campus. One thing I want to share too is that as you look at this, there's also some clear applications beyond sustainability specifically. And so when we engaged with other groups, a lot of what we heard is, oh, this platform could really encompass any kind of experiential learning opportunity that's happening at our university, not just sustainability. As the Sustainability Institute, we have a vested interest in this being focused on sustainability, but we are thinking too about the expansion of this project to be wider. Thank you, yep. Jeff, I'm glad you like the name. Yes, I like it too. I tried to be really creative and stuff with some other names. It just didn't fly. So we thought this was a good compromise. So the first thing that we did after we kind of developed our vision for the project is we thought about the stakeholders that we wanted to engage. And so I have here listed all the academic units we engaged. We also engaged people outside of academic units. So we talked to some external partners, we talked to some operational units, and we were trying to figure out, what do you need that you're not getting that would help you create new living lab opportunities? Or if you're engaged in living lab opportunities, where are you seeing barriers? Where are you seeing disincentives to do this kind of work? And what do you see as the value of this kind of work? We had our own ideas of what we thought the value of living lab opportunities were, but we really wanted to talk to different instructors, different professors who were creating these opportunities for their students, and hearing kind of their thoughts and making sure we're building a tool that's going to be in their service. And so we talked to a bunch of different academic units. We had a bit of a methodology that we use. So we reached out to different like curriculum deans, academic deans, and asked for connections to their faculty that were engaged with project-based learning, or their staff that were engaged with project-based learning. And then we also looked through different courses at the university and tried to identify, keywords, things like capstones, things like experiential, and reach out to those instructors. There's the one thing we quickly realized is that we could be interviewing people for years and still miss people. And so we kind of focused on making sure that rather than hitting everybody, we were hitting the main units at the university. So we wanted to make sure we weren't leaving out any key units, even if we couldn't talk to anyone within every unit. So this is kind of where we ended up. We had, like I said, a bit of a methodology. We had like a survey form that we used to try to make sure that we're asking similar questions of everyone. Something that was interesting of this phase of the project is that this phase was occurring last spring. And so when we started it, we were talking with a lot of people, and then COVID started becoming a bigger thing. And we quickly noticed our conversations changing about, rather than how do we create living lab opportunities, how do we create virtual project opportunities for students? And that was really interesting. It's not something we really were able to fully capture just because like our data was split a bit on the information we were getting, but it's definitely something that we kind of would like to explore further if we were to re-talk to a lot of these people, is how has COVID impacted, a lot of their teaching? And then, what are some lessons we learned from this time? But it was interesting kind of seeing that shift in the information we were collecting as people's focus and kind of idea of what it meant to engage in project-based learning shifted due to this new reality we were living in. So that was very exciting. We have a report that we published from these interviews, so I'd be happy to share that as well if you'd like, but we also have some key takeaways that we got. So some recognized commonalities from a lot of these interviews that we were conducting is some of the barriers to project-based learning PBL. First off was being a significant time investment with limited incentives due to the structure of Ohio State and how we reward things like the amount of money that we give different units for the number of students they have in their courses, and just other ways, the way we track faculty's contributions to the university. Most of it's a focus on research and teaching rather than on project-based work. And so we noticed that there was a lot of time being sunk in by professors and instructors to create these project-based learning opportunities, but very little recognition coming from their units or the university of the work they were doing and of the value they were contributing to the university. So there was a clear gap there between the amount of time people were investing and the reward and recognition they were receiving for their time. Whereas if they focused that same amount of effort and time into something like research and they were getting published, there was a much clearer incentive path for the research they were publishing. Another big issue was managing client and student expectations. A lot of these projects, especially if we're working with a client who's trying to get a physical product out of their projects, something at the end of their partnership with the university, it could be really difficult to manage the client's expectations and also the students' expectations, because a lot of times those two groups don't have the same end goal. A student's end goal is most often to get a good grade or have something at the end of a semester that they can share, whereas a lot of time a partner has a lot longer term goals. They're thinking a year or two out, and they're thinking, hey, if we have a student who contributes to something, that's great, but the student would rather have something finalized and end up with that they could share. And so there's definitely difficulty in managing the expectations of these two groups, as well as, when we have a lot of these people engaging in this space, they are representing the university, but they're not getting a lot of support from the university. And so when they go out and work with a partner, that partner may have a different perception of the university than if they had worked with a different student group or a different professor. And so we noticed that there was a lot of difficulties in just managing all those expectations and all the goals of these different groups. Another thing was limited knowledge of outcomes. And this was from a university and faculty perspective. We just didn't really know what we were producing through these projects. So we knew we had a lot of great projects happening and we had a lot of students and faculty engaged in this space, but no one was really capturing the outcomes from all these projects or tracking the impact of this work. And so we'd have a student group do some great work for a city or for our campus, and it would make an impact, but no one could really name what that impact was because all the partners went their separate way at the end of it, and no one was really keeping track of those outcomes. And so we definitely wanted to make sure we're capturing the value of this work. Another thing is difficulty in identifying good potential project partners. A lot of times faculty or instructors, they were relying on their individual networks to form these potential project partnerships. And that puts a lot of stress on them because they're putting their relationship with this group on the line when they're kind of making a new project that students might be working with or a project that they're going to take on. And they also weren't positive that the partner they were working with was the most ideal partner. It might just be the one that was easiest to form a connection with. And so there was a lot of concern there about, the difficulty in really making sure that we're establishing good partnerships with groups and they're the most meaningful partnerships possible. And so some of the desired outcomes because half of the interview was hearing where they're at and half of the interview was hearing about where they wanted to go. So some of the desires they had for the future of project-based learning at the university is being able to see how others are engaging in project-based learning, learning what other faculty are doing. The one thing we noticed as another commonality in these interviews is that people really had very little awareness of what other people were doing at the university. So people didn't know about best practices, or we could have multiple people working with the same partner and never realize that we all have simultaneous projects going on. So there was a lot of questions around that. People also wanted to see like a menu or, like a bulletin board of potential projects or potential partners, people who have expressed interest in engaging in the space, or people who have engaged with other groups and it's been successful. So they wanted to know where's a place I could go to find information about potential projects. Capturing the outcomes from these projects, people wanted a centralized place where they'd be able to house reports, house information. And so at the end, they could have some place to go to be able to quickly see, hey, here's the impacts I've been creating from the time I've been investing in this work. And then also being able to market ongoing projects. So some of these projects are multi-year projects and people were needing a continuous flow of students or a continuous flow of support to make them successful. And so people were always looking, is there any, kind of communication tool that we can be using to make sure that we can raise awareness about the great work that's happening at our university? So happy to share, there's more information in the report, so happy to share that out afterwards. But as we looked at the commonalities, then we decided, okay, what's the functionality that we want to achieve with this virtual platform? And so there was a couple of things. We realized that we might have slightly different goals depending on who's using the tool. And so we kind of had to identify that. And then also, when we say internal, there's still a lot of different groups there's a lot of different groups that make up our internal audience that we might be targeting, and they also might have different goals and different uses for this. So we kind of had to break up our audiences a bit. And so for internal, we were thinking about faculty and staff, and then also students. And then for external, we were thinking about potential project partners, people that the university has worked with in the past who have expressed an interest in getting engaged in project-based learning work, or we think they'd be really great at offering some projects for students. So you can see there some information. The main idea, though, is that we wanted a communication tool. We wanted something that we could use to talk to a wide array of people, and they'd be able to customize the information they're seeing so that they can understand what's happening at the university and how they can engage in it. So then we got into the platform development. And we kind of realized that if we want to serve all the functions that we identified previously, we're going to kind of have to build two separate things and house them in one large overarching platform. So the first thing we identified that we needed was a new sustainability map. The university, Ohio State, already has a sustainability map, but it's not that great. It's really more just some quick examples of different projects. So we wanted something that was more user-friendly, that could display more information in an easy to read way, and that people could also filter so they could decide what information they're seeing. And then, because not all the projects that we're working with are place-based, we also wanted to build a database that could house the lion's share of information. And that way people could go in there and they could be submitting information about a project. It's not place-based, something that is with a partner or is, more theoretical rather than physical. And they'd still be able to submit their information there. And then also people would be able to find examples of those projects there. And so these tools together would work in tandem to build the overall sustainability and action platform. And so they'd be linked. People would be able to go between these two different functions, but they'd still be able to, easily find the information that they're looking for. So it's almost like if you think about when you Google a result, being able to switch between the Google results and the Google map. Kind of, you're getting slightly different information, but it's still connected. Let me know, the next part gets a little bit, what is the platform type of map and database? I may not fully understand your question, but when I say platform, I just mean web platform, just like a virtual web platform. And so it's going to be housed on the Sustainability Institute website, and it's just going to have like different links that lead to these different applications that people can use. Who collects information and maintains the database? We'll share some information about that quickly. Did someone unmute to say something?
Oh yeah, Matt, I'm just wondering about the platform type question from Liska. Are you using a certain database like Access or, I think maybe that's what Liska was driving at there, although you can correct me, Liska.
Yeah, thanks. Definitely for the database, if it's Access or an external one, like there's different companies that have the web-based ones. And then for the map, if it's Google or ArcGIS, GIS, kind of that type.
Gotcha. Thank you. I appreciate the clarification there. So we're kind of building each of these tools. So the map is going to be based off of GIS data. So it's going to be, like GIS. And I have a demonstration of that in a little bit. And then for the database, we use Drupal for our website, and Drupal has built-in database like capabilities. And so we're constructing a database out of those functionalities. Great. So for the who collects information, I'll share that shortly. And then is this only for the main campus or does it include regional campuses? So it'll include regional campuses. And then, like we said, since we're also tracking work that occurs off our campuses, it includes information beyond that. And so we'll demonstrate that as well. There's basically like different location filters that people can use. So you can use a filter that just demonstrates Central Campus. You can use a filter that demonstrates all of Ohio, or we're going to have a global filter as well, so people can see some of the work we're doing abroad. Great. Thank you for these questions. These are great to see. So here's a quick screenshot of a draft map that we have developed. So we're working with a group on campus called the Center for Urban and Regional Analysis. They're a great group. They do some amazing work. They have a ton of expertise in GIS and displaying place-based information. And so they've built us out this example map that we're using. And so we gave them some dummy information. This is in no way finalized, but it's kind of like, it's just an example of the functionality that we're trying to achieve. And so you can see here, it populates onto a picture. This is right now focused on Ohio State's campus. And so you can choose up here in the top right a different filter, and it takes you to different locations. So if you wanted to go all the way to Columbus, if you want to go all the way out to the United States, we haven't populated a lot of these filter areas yet. So that'll be coming in future versions. But yeah, and then we can also go around wider to the whole world and display information like that. So if we go back to main campus, you can see here we have different categories. We'll be talking more about the categories in a second. These categories are evolving, but these are the ones that we had when we built this first draft of the map. And so you can see if people were interested in something like sustainable operations, they can filter out all the other options and then just see some examples. And then when they click on one of these examples, they'll see some more information here. And so this is about like a parking garage that has electric vehicle charging and has some energy efficiency standards built into it. And then also, if you wanted to go over on this side, you can see different examples. So you can be selecting these different filters over here. We're building out, so this is like this little tree shape here is our natural spaces filter. So you can be, we're going to have multiple filters. There's going to be some more information in the finalized draft or in the finalized version of the map. And so people will be able to get some like text explaining which each of these filters do. And there's going to be like a short introduction to the tool so people know how to navigate it. but we're also very excited up here. We have search functionality. So and the finalized version, people will be able to type in something like water and see all the projects that came up that have water tagged as an attribute. Right now, we've kind of limited the amounts. And so if we go by something like garage, we can see some information. And then if you click on it, it takes you to it, shows you where it's at. You can click on it for more information. Again, in the finalized version, we're going to have like links here that go back and forth between the database. Let's see here. Once a project is mapped, does it stay on the map indefinitely, or will a project profile sunset after some amount of time? It depends. So some of our attributes are more stationary. You'll see in the categories that we're going to share in a bit, we have things like research labs. Sustainability research labs is one of the things. Those will probably stay on the map forever, but things like living lab projects will be rotated on and off. And so part of the information we're collecting about different projects is their estimated completion date. And so we're going to be displaying projects for a certain amount of time based off their estimated completion date. Some of these projects, things that we consider like flagship projects or exemplary, examples of project-based learning, those we might keep on the map for longer periods of time. But the idea is that most of the information about the projects and about the research will be filtering on and off. Are there digital accessibility considerations for the map? Yeah, absolutely. So we're working with Ohio State has some digital accessibility folks. And so we're working with them to make sure that this finalized project is going to meet all the standards. But yeah, that's something that we're always concerned about is the functionality of this tool and making sure that anyone can utilize the information that's housed within it. Will you archive the final project somewhere on your library website or other? Yeah, good question. So the database is really going to be where we're housing the lion's share of information. So things will live forever in the database, but they'll live on the map for shorter windows of time. So anything that's, and there will also, anything that's on the map will be on the database, but not everything that's in the database will be on the map. And so people will always be able to go there to find information. And the idea is that we won't be getting rid of historical projects because we think there's a lot we can learn from those historical projects. And we also want to make sure that we're preserving those outcomes. So yeah, that's where most of the information will be housed. Good questions though. But yeah, we're very excited about this new map and we think it's going to be a great tool for communicating. So this is where, please don't get lost in all the details here, but this next stage is just an example of how the platform works as a whole and kind of how users interface with it. And so you can see here, the content manager, that's us. And so that's the Sustainability Institute. And we're going to have access to this data management interface. It's just a way of us submitting information and approving information. And so I'll show it here in the next slide, but we have a form that people can use to submit information about projects or research that they want to be included in the tool. And then we'll be approving things on the back end or, fixing, typos or reaching out to contacts if they submit an incomplete form and say, hey, you need to resubmit with this information, or like you need to send us this information so we can approve it. So we're going to be managing the content from that side. Once things get past the data management interface, so someone submits through the form, we approve it. Then it gets into the database. The database is where we're going to be housing a majority of the information. And then through our website, which is based off of Drupal, there's a way you can tag information, GeoJSON. There might be another way of pronouncing that, but it's just a way of displaying the information that's housed in our database onto the map. And so we're going to set up the map so it's drawing information from this database, using it to populate the web application, and then public viewers will be able to interface with that sustainability map and with the database. We're constructing, there's going to be like two versions of the database. There's going to be a backend database that really only we see, and then a user-facing database that's going to have better functionality within it, and also has restricted things that people can do with the information that's on there. Let's see here. Will we be using the map or database to provide access to campus data for projects so that it's easier for? Yes. So that's part of the reason we're segmenting the information in this way, is that if someone needs this kind of more back-end database, we're going to be able to provide the information within it. But a typical user would never have access to that. And they wouldn't be able to see kind of this more raw data form of the information. And so there's going to be a more refined kind of way of displaying the information for the typical user. So like I said, it looks complicated, but the ending is that we're going to have control over the information, and the map is going to be pulling information out of the database, and the user-facing database is going to be pulling information out of this backend database. But they're all connected to this centralized database here.
Hey, Matt.
Yes.
I could ask, could you imagine a student just discovered all the work you do and says, show me everything you've ever done on campus on composting. Could you send them to your collection of information and they could quickly find a whole bunch of examples of past projects?
Yeah, so through the user-facing database, they'd be able to do that. So once that's constructed, it's going to be searchable. So they could just type in compost and then they'd see all the information pop up. If they wanted something, like if they were doing some kind of research project on campus composting projects, and they wanted like the raw data, like the text and stuff like that, then we would be able to send that to them. They would not be able to gain access to it, but we could give them the information.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So yeah, like I said, happy to talk more in depth about this, but frankly, web development is not my expertise. And so there's a lot here that I might not fully be able to articulate super well, but I can get answers to any questions that people have if they want to have more information about kind of the more technical aspects of this side of the project. What's the type of data being submitted by the contributor? Great question. Wow. Did you look at my slide deck beforehand? So we're going to go right into that. But here's just some examples of the different categories. These are evolving. We're kind of adapting these. But the idea is, again, we want to be able to display projects, research, some of our operations. We want to be able to display natural environment. This tool is going to display a lot of different types of information, but we want to make sure it's like this holistic communication tool. But again, people can easily filter through it to pull out the information they want. So if someone was only interested in Living Lab projects, it should take them very few steps to be able to only see Living Lab information. But so here's an example of the entry template people would be using. So this is the type of data people will be submitting. Most of it's text-based, but we also have ways for people to attach, like different files. So if someone made a video about their project, we want them to be able to submit that, and then we can house that. This part of the project is the least developed so far. So the map, we have a draft of. The actual database, we don't have drafts of yet. That's the next phase that we're going into, and I'll share more about that in a little bit. But yeah, so we're working through the amount of data we can store on our website, how accessible it'll be, the way we can visualize different types of data. So we're working through those pieces right now. But the idea is that people would be able to submit essentially any kind of product. So whether it's a PDF report, whether it's a video file, whether it's an audio interview, they'd be able to submit a lot of information to this, and all of it could be housed here. But a majority of the information will just be text-based. People saying, who was involved in the project, what the goal of the project was, if it was associated with a class, kind of all these different questions that people may have about a project. And so most of it will just be text-based information that we're displaying. Does that answer your question? Okay, perfect. Yep.
I have a question to Matt. This is Mary Nally from Ohio University.
Yeah.
We also have a main campus and several regional campuses, and a history of being quite decentralized. And our faculty have the privilege of operating rather autonomously within their various silos. So I'm curious, how are you incentivizing or supporting faculty and staff to complete this form so that you gather their information? I direct the Community Engagement Center here, and it can be a challenge. There isn't really a formal structure for me consistently to gather information about what our faculty and staff are doing that's community engaged. And I imagine that is a similar challenge for our sustainability office. I'm curious if that is a concern at all on your end, or how you might be addressing that.
It's a major concern. Thank you for raising that. Yeah, so yeah, how complete our information is definitely a question we have about this tool. Likely, unfortunately, we'll never have 100% updated with all the projects that are occurring. But frankly, anything's better than where we're at now. And so any information we can be housing and centralizing is important. One of the key ways we're doing it is through the Sustainability Institute. Faculty members can choose to be an associate of the Sustainability Institute, and they have to commit to being, like that their work is involved in sustainability and they want to be actively engaged. And so right now we have a lot of different ways people can engage with the Institute. So it could be attending some kind of brown bag lunch seminar. It could be attending, some kind of review for a grant process that we have. And so what we will probably be adding into those expectations is participation in submitting information to this database if you have information that complies. And so hopefully through that we can incentivize. Thankfully, with the associate system of people opting in, we can get a sense of the classes they're teaching and the work they're doing. And then also we've been identifying existing projects. And so we already know most of the quote unquote key players in this space. And so we're going to be doing direct engagement with those key players and be checking in and saying, hey, you teach the capstone course that we know produces a lot of campus as living lab projects. Can you send us some information about these projects? As far as incentives go, that's one of the reasons we spent so much time through the interview process, is because we were really trying to figure out what people want to gain out of a tool. And we tried to build a lot of that into the eventual tool. As we always see with these kinds of projects, there's a big gap between people, what they say they want and what they'll actually do. And so that's definitely a major concern we have. And so we hope building a bit of an incentive into the associate faculty kind of system there, we can have a bit more accountability through that. Another thing is that the university itself has a large interest in living labs. So Ohio State has several times expressed that this is something that we're very passionate about. And we've been syncing up this project with kind of their expectations. And so we're hoping there's going to be a bit of pressure coming from our centralized university and making sure people are submitting information to this tool so that the university can kind of showcase what we're doing. And so hopefully from the centralized university and then from also people's individual academic units, making sure that they're sharing the information. So there's a couple key ways we're hoping to be showing pressure. I think ultimately this is going to be a bit of a learning process. Once we launch it, we're probably going to have to figure out, okay, what really works to get people to submit information. And whether it's just me sending a lot of reminder emails or it's, building some more clear expectations into what we need from each of these units, we'll have to mess around with. But yeah, great question.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone has the answer for how to incentivize people to submit information to a tool, please let me know, because I've yet to find anyone who has the answer, but I'd love to hear one. Awesome. Yeah, so this whole database side and kind of the web form that people will be using, that's all forthcoming, but we're very excited about that phase of our project. So as far as next steps go, kind of where we're looking ahead. So this is going to be the database development. So we're looking now to acquire some quotes from different web developers to figure out, who we might be progressing with. We had one web developer that we were probably going to work with, but then some other projects kind of ended up being more than they expected. And so we might be evaluating new partnerships just to make sure we can stick with some kind of some version of our timeline. I was sharing this earlier, but this project has not progressed the way we wanted it to. But that's frankly not that surprising with everything else that happened in 2020. So we're making sure that when we launch this, it reflects our vision rather than trying to, launch something quickly that's not quite what we are hoping to accomplish. So we pushed our timeline back a little bit in that regard. But what we're doing right now is cataloging project learning. And so that's actually one thing that's been kind of interesting and encouraging as we have been working on this project, is that we've actually seen a lot of interest in people sharing information about their projects. So as we kind of stated earlier, there's a big gap between the amount of time people are investing into this area and the amount of incentive they're receiving or reward or recognition they're receiving. And so a lot of these faculty were frankly very willing to share information about what they're working on. And so they've been willing to send us information about their projects or potential projects that they're trying to start. And so we have a bit of a catalog going of information that will be ready to input into the tool so that when we launch it, it has a lot of information already into it. And then from there, we'll have people kind of be continually submitting information. Let's see here. Might be a good project for a student to interview faculty. Yeah, that's a great point. We do have some student employees that we have at the Sustainability Institute. Yeah, we can always be. I think one issue with the interview process is that it's very time intensive. And so while we saw a lot of willingness for faculty to engage in this first round of interviewing, If we were to be continuously interviewing kind of similar people, I'm not sure if we would stay in their good graces, especially, students do great work, but since student employees tend to, kind of move quickly through a position, they don't tend to stay in one position for very long. There won't be a lot of historical knowledge there. I was thinking to get the survey completed. I'm sorry, would you elaborate on what your point there?
Yeah, sorry. I thought you were saying that you're having, Mary asked about having people fill out the survey and how hard it is to get people to do that. And I can certainly relate to that. But I was thinking if you have students who, like we have students who work for the Office of Sustainability, we have work study students, we have graduate students, that it could be kind of their job to figure out what's going on campus and what might fit in. So
yes, thank you. That's a great suggestion. And that's definitely part of our plan is we have some student employees and we may potentially even be creating new student positions to help manage this tool because there's going to be a lot of great information coming through this tool, we think, but we also recognize that a lot of the back end work is kind of just going to be busy work. Like you said, proofreading information and approving it and getting it through. And so, yeah, we'll likely have some students fulfilling in for some of those roles just to make sure that we can always be, still focusing staff time and faculty time on thinking of, are there future evolutions of this tool? Or also, what can we be doing with the data? We want to make sure we're not spending too much time kind of sinking into just the management of the data itself. Yeah, great question there. So here's an idea from Christina: introduce survey form and provide dedicated time to fill out form at Sustainability Institute events. Works for student course, might work for faculty too. Yeah, that's a great idea there. So that's definitely something we could work into some of our events. We put on a number of events throughout the year. Most of them are focused on engaging students, but we definitely have a number of faculty and faculty engagement events, not too many staff engagement events. But yeah, that could be a great idea for getting some of those initial round. We definitely anticipate one of the biggest barriers to launching this tool is going to be in that first round of data and getting those people to become more familiar with the tool and what we're trying to achieve with it. Hopefully, once it's been around for a little bit and it's proven usefulness, hopefully people will be willing to kind of make it as part of their possibly, annual or end of year process to just submit information to the project. But definitely in that first round, we're probably going to have to do a lot of dedicated marketing and outreach efforts to get people to engage with it. We mention this tool constantly. So people definitely have learned to associate the Sustainability Institute with a living lab database. And so definitely kind of building that into our events is a great idea there. Yeah, great questions, everyone, and great ideas. Thank you. Awesome. So yeah, you can see there, market development is going to be one of the next big phases there. And so we're hoping to have a late spring launch. And then I think that is, if I'll go, yeah, just some anticipated timeline here. So just real quick, those are really estimates. A lot of this is going to depend on the proposals we see from our web developers as far as this timeline goes. But yeah, so that's the presentation that we wanted to share with you all. Thank you everyone for your questions. I think we have a little time for questions now at the end, but then here's some of my contact information. And you can always feel free to reach out to me. We're going to be sharing these slides and recording out after this presentation, and I'm happy to include some of this other information we've talked about as well. But yeah, please feel free if you have any questions about kind of what we're trying to achieve with this tool and where we're going, feel free to reach out to me and let me know. And then also I'm hoping to share a bit of an update with you all once the tool kind of starts to reach a further point of completion. But yeah, thank you everybody. I guess, yeah, we have some time for questions now. If anyone has any others, I'll go ahead and stop sharing.
Hi, Matt. Thanks so much for your presentation today. My question is, could you tell us maybe your estimated budget or maybe the budget you started with and now the budget that you're considering given, the many changes?
Yeah, that's a good question. So our original, frankly, the budget for this has kind of evolved a lot as we've looked at the tool. And so when we first thought about this project, the map was not really a piece of it. So we were thinking more of just like a database side. And so we had some budget on that side. We were thinking of like upgrading our map that existed. So we had a little bit of budget kind of thought for that, but it wasn't necessarily truly a part of the original plan for this project. So our budget's been evolving. We have tentatively bookmarked 20 for thinking about web development and possibly web design if we need it. So we have a lot of web projects happening right now. And so that's that's kind of helped us figure out some average costs that we might anticipate from the design and development of a tool like this. But yeah, so we have about 20. It's possible it could be more. We're transitioning our website now currently. This is more detail than you really need, but we're transitioning our website right now to a different kind of web hosting platform, and that may complicate the ability of a web developer to design a tool like this. And so that may increase the costs. So yeah, that's where we're at now. I'll be able to give you a better estimate. Also, this year budgets have kind of had to go in a lot of flux, as I'm sure people are familiar with. So we've been taking and pulling from different areas as we've cost saved some and spent more in others. And so our budget's been shifting around a lot for this one. Thank you though. Good
No,
question.
thank you. And just to clarify, that's 20,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing I've learned from this project is it's probably not a bad idea to learn web development. So
Hi, Matt. This is Steve Miller with nonprofit SEI. I'm just curious, what was your motivation for the mapping part of the the project? And are you aware of any other institutions that have either the database and or the mapping for these types of projects in place?
yeah, absolutely. If you're looking, I want to say University of Washington. Let me Google this real quick. They have an amazing sustainability map. Let me pull it up. Make sure. I can send some information about some of the groups we've been like benchmarking against to figure out. So they have a great one. The University of Washington Campus Sustainability Map is awesome. And so we've taken a lot of inspiration, maybe stolen a few ideas from their map. And it's definitely a great tool. It's actually, our original goal was almost to replicate them, but we haven't, when we started thinking more about Living Lab, we kind of had to go in a slightly different direction. So they're definitely a big inspiration. They do a lot of great work. And then there's another group, the tool is called Learn Gala. I forget the university that houses it. It might be Michigan. Yeah, I think it's Michigan State. It's not stealing, it's called a precedent. Thank you. I'll have to steal that. I had not seen, yes, Toronto. We actually, we had a chance to compare with the University of Toronto, and they had a great database, and we were able to learn from their process and definitely benefited a lot from those conversations. Learn Gala, if you go to Learn Gala, they're slightly different. Their tool is about case studies. And so it's looking about, building out like a database of case studies that people could use for classes or coursework, but then also capturing kind of some of these cool examples of how people are working in different areas. But the functionality side of their tool was a big inspiration for us as we thought, how do we want people to navigate through and how do we want to display our information? And so those are two really great examples. I can pull more information about some of the people we've benchmarked against, but those are the big ones, I'd say.
Thank you.
At the University of Toronto. Yeah, absolutely. Were there any other Ohio University recently? Oh, that's super. I did not know that. Thank you, Sam. I will have to check that out. Stephen, did your question have another component that I glazed over?
No, I'm
Okay.
good. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that question. Yeah, lots of great. I hope in no way did I kind of infer that we are the only ones doing this work. There's a lot of great universities doing a lot of really cool stuff with virtual tools around Living Lab. So we've definitely been inspired by a lot of that work and kind of recognized some of the ways that Ohio State has been falling behind in this regard. And so mostly we're playing catch up at this point, but we're also hoping to innovate in a couple of ways. Great. Maybe time for one or two last questions. Maybe not.
Yeah, it looks like it's nearing about our time, but thank you again so much, Matt. This has been such an engaging, lively discussion. You've been a fantastic presenter and just really know how to use the Zoom format very well. So thank you so much again for your time. And like Rochelle mentioned, all of these materials will be up in our campus's Living Lab database. So feel free to peruse at any time and follow up with Matt if you have further questions.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.